This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, welcome everyone. Shalom Aleichem. Bruchim Abayim. We are continuing the Iggeres HaRamban. I believe yesterday we said the main principle, not of what we could learn from the Iggeres HaRamban, but I would say the main principle of understanding the Iggeres HaRamban. I think without this principle, I would say one could have only a very elementary understanding of the Iggeres HaRamban, and through this principle, one's understanding of the Iggeres HaRamban is sort of taken completely to the next plane. And that is, the Ramban seems to be very repetitious. He starts off the Iggeres, Tisnahig tamid ledaber kol dvarecha benachas. Accustom yourself at all times to speak your words gently. And then the Ramban says, I'll explain to you how to conduct yourself with humility, to walk in it always. All your words should be gently, softly. Excuse me, we know that already. Secondly, the Ramban says that b'chol dvarecha, in all your words, u'ma'asecha, and your actions, u'machshaveisecha, and your thoughts, chashov b'libcha, think in your heart, ki'ilu ata oimed lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Think as if you're standing before God, u'shchinasa yalecha, and His shchina is upon you, ki kavaydai malei ha'olam. His honor fills the world. As we mentioned, the Ramban said that as well, that v'nemar ki, the pasuk says, Alo yaseh shamayim yasar tzani malei. So in this really amazing edition of the Ramban called Oyhal Yaakov, he breaks up the Iggeres HaRamban into prakim. He calls Perek Rishon B'darkei Knias Ha'anava, how to acquire humility. Perek Beis he calls Bignus Hagaiva, the disparagement of arrogance. And Perek Gimel, he calls B'darkei Midas Ha'anava, how to, what Anava is. And basically, there are two elements of humility. There is how to get it, and there's how to keep it. And lest you think, okay, I trained myself to speak quietly, so I've acquired humility. Now I could sort of conduct myself in a little bit of a different fashion. No, speaking softly is not just how to acquire it, but that's how to practice it. Recognizing you're always in Hashem's presence is not just how to acquire it, but it's how to practice it. And I believe that this is like a major breakthrough in the Iggeres HaRamban, because I've seen it many times, and this was certainly problematic, why the Ramban says certain things and comes back to the same points, and this really, I think, is a big breakthrough. The Ramban continues, Udvarecha yeh be'ema uv'yira ke'eved lifnei Rabbi. Your words should be with awe and with fear, like a servant before his master. Because your words, b'chlal, should be be'ema uv'yira, because before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you have to speak with hachna and with humility. Now, it's an interesting thing that the Rav Goldberg brings down the Iggeres Hagra. What do you know? Iggeres Hagra that we learned recently, that for each word of emptiness, even if it's not Dvarim Ha'asurim, one deserves to be slung from one end of the world to the other. What's wrong? What's wrong with, basically brainless conversation? Is there something wrong with it? What am I doing wrong by sort of, okay, look, everybody sometimes needs to relax and needs to have a lighter moment, but let's say without any cheshbon at all, just for the sake of wasting time. What is inherently wrong with it? So the Rav Goldberg brings the Gemara in Sanhedrin about Hanani, Mishael, Azariah, that when they serve the king, they would force themselves not to laugh and not to talk. Why? Because in front of a king, you can't just talk. You don't just like schmooze around. If you're standing in front of Reb Chaim Kanievsky, you're not going to start, idle chattering with your friend. It's clearly you're not cognizant of where you are. So since there is this responsibility to recognize you're always in the presence of Hashem, words need to be accounted for. Now, v'tisbayesh mikol adam, you should be ashamed before other people. Now, the Ramban did say earlier, when you accord yourself with the midah v'anava to be embarrassed from everyone, so again, there it was in terms of acquiring humility, and here it's in terms of practicing humility. Then the Ramban says, v'im yikra'echa ish, if someone calls you, al ta'anenu b'kol, don't answer loudly. Rak benachas, only softly, ka'oimei lifnei Rabbi, as if you are standing in front of your master. Now, what in the world is the Ramban adding over here? That if your friend calls you, don't respond loudly. First of all, he already said, all your words should be soft. Furthermore, why doesn't the Ramban just say, when you speak to your friend, it should be benachas? What is the Ramban adding? The Ramban, says Rav Goldberg, perhaps is adding that not only when you're speaking with people, your words should be gentle and soft, but even if someone calls you, and you're going to speak b'kol ram, in other words, I understand when you initiate the conversation, you should do so softly, but the typical manner of people's responses is they respond in kind. So when somebody speaks loudly to you, usually you respond in kind. So the chiddush here is even if somebody speaks loud to you, you shouldn't respond in a loud voice, but you should lower it a decibel. First of all, if you're giving a share, you'll get people's attention because you're speaking loud, and all of a sudden you turn it to a lower decibel. But that's the chiddush of the Ramban. Rav Goldberg quotes the Palayoyetz. He says the Chachamim should accord honor to their friends, and included Bechlal Kavod is don't speak even with other people very loud. Okay. Now, what does the Ramban mean? Rak benachas ka'oimei lifnei Rabbi. You should speak softly, like standing before your master, as we learned that a person needs to be mamlich their friend and to be misbatel before their will, like an eved before the king. This is what the Ramban refers to, that if somebody speaks to you, calls you, you should answer him softly, sort of ready to do their will. By the way, as we quoted when we learnt the Iggeres Hagra, that Reb Shach, when somebody would come to ask him a question, he would always stand up. And when Reb Shach was asked, why are you standing up? That's not necessarily a chash of a person. Reb Shach says, after 120, they're going to ask, were you mamlich your friend? How can I show that I'm mamlich my friend? I stand up for them. In the Orchos Chaim of the Rosh, he says, Pales magal raglecha, liyasher atzmecha b'derech beinani, v'al tat yomin usmol, uvidivurcha uvahazbaras panim, im ho'emuna. And the Mefarshim wonder, what does it mean, im ho'emuna? Reb Chaim Kanievsky brings, in the name of Eliyahu Lapian, in the name of Reb Simcha Zissel of Kelm, that the midah of the mila of this midah is when you're mechabed somebody, not out of embarrassment or chanifa or externality, but you should honor someone because you believe. In other words, why you should honor somebody? Because you believe that they're at Tselem Elokim. However, Goldberg says you could explain what this means as follows: that to show your friend a nice countenance by recognizing and believing that you believe that whatever qualities you think that you might be superior to that person, you have an emunah that it's just a gift from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In other words, here the Rosh is saying you should honor somebody and show them respect, im ha'emunah. So one pshat Reb Chaim Kanievsky brings is im ha'emunah, that you believe that the person was created b'tselem Elokim. But another pshat is, if you believe that everybody's milos and chesronos, attributes and deficiencies, are all the way the Rebbeinu Shem created me and you, so honoring somebody in that sense means you have emunah that everything comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that is why the Ramban said earlier, in the eyes of Hashem, everyone is equal. So I think this gives us a better understanding of the structure of the Ramban. And Be'ezus Hashem, the next segment of the Iggeres HaRamban is the pathway of Avodas Hashem. That's the fourth part of it. And that we're going to start Be'ezus Hashem after Pesach. We may not start the first week after Pesach. Be'ezus Hashem, tonight at 7:45 on Torah Anytime, you could watch the special class on the Sefer Maggid Rakia. 8:30 tonight is our weekly shir, and everyone is invited. Friday we have a shir 10:30, or you could join us here in Cedarhurst on Shabbos for the Shabbos Haggadah Drasha. And hope to see everybody soon. Kol Tov, have a great day.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.